Diddy and Luigi walked the same halls, shared the same walls, but what happened inside those cells no one outside could imagine, and I witnessed it all firsthand. Most people imagine jail as a dull, gray place where time drags on endlessly. For our source, it started that way. The fluorescent lights flickered overhead, casting shadows on peeling walls. The air smelled faintly of bleach and despair. He had been locked up for a minor offense, but what awaited him was far from ordinary. Within the same block, names that carried weight beyond the prison walls had passed through. Diddy, the music mogul known worldwide, and Luigi, a man with a fearsome reputation, had both been in this very facility. The thought of sharing even the same space as them made his pulse quicken. At first, life behind bars seemed repetitive and predictable. Roll calls, showers, mealtime, and the endless hum of tension in the air. But slowly, he began noticing patterns. Certain inmates moved with calculated precision, while others observed silently from corners. Whispers carried through the halls like coded messages, and one misstep could have serious consequences. The prison wasn't just a place for punishment. It was a chessboard where power shifted in subtle, dangerous ways. Even the smallest moments revealed secrets. A look exchanged in the cafeteria could mean an alliance, a challenge, or a warning. People had stories, and some of those stories were darker than anyone outside could imagine. Our source realized that fame and fear didn't always protect someone inside these walls. Diddy, despite his name and influence, wasn't untouchable. Luigi, feared and respected, still had to navigate carefully to maintain his position. Watching them maneuver was like witnessing a high-stakes game where every decision could ripple far beyond the cell block. But the most unnerving revelation was how jail exposed character. It peeled away pretenses and forced people to confront their instincts, their weaknesses, and their ambitions. Alliances could form in a single day and dissolve the next. Trust was a rare commodity, and betrayal lurked around every corner. Our source started paying attention to who moved with confidence, who spoke cautiously, and who watched without being noticed. Each observation was a clue, a piece of a puzzle that revealed a world most people would never see. By the end of the first week, he understood something unsettling. Jail wasn't just a place of punishment. It was a theater of survival, strategy, and influence. Every step he took, every glance he gave, carried weight. And being in the same space that Diddy and Luigi had once occupied made him realize that the stories behind these walls were far more dangerous, more calculated, and more shocking than anything he had expected. He was no longer just a prisoner. He was a witness to a hidden world where power and fear intertwined in ways that would change how he saw everything outside those walls. Days in jail moved slowly, each one blending into the next, yet every moment felt heavy with tension. Our source quickly learned that surviving behind bars required constant awareness. The rules were strict and unforgiving: headcounts at dawn, searches that could strip away dignity, and silence enforced by fear rather than authority. But it wasn't just the system that demanded caution. It was the people. Every inmate carried a story, a reputation, and a hidden agenda. Some were quiet, keeping to themselves, observing others with sharp, calculating eyes. Others acted aggressively, testing boundaries, asserting dominance in ways that could turn a routine day into chaos. He realized early on that life inside the walls was like watching a live game of chess. Every move mattered, and no action went unnoticed. Alliances formed quickly, often sealed with subtle gestures or whispered words, while rivalries could explode in seconds, leaving lasting scars. It wasn't enough to be strong physically. Intelligence, observation, and timing were far more valuable. Watching Diddy and Luigi navigate this environment was a revelation. Their names alone did not grant immunity. Respect had to be earned, and even then, it could vanish in an instant. The routine of jail revealed hidden patterns. Mealtime became a stage for power dynamics: who sat where, who spoke to whom, who avoided eye contact. The hallways carried invisible signals. Even small gestures, like leaning too close or speaking too loudly, could trigger tension. Our source learned to read these signs, understanding that survival depended on perception as much as action. But it wasn't all strategy and observation. The walls held a strange rhythm of human emotion: fear, boredom, anger, and occasional moments of camaraderie. The days were long, but the nights were longer, filled with the unspoken awareness that danger could strike at any moment. Rumors of past crimes, betrayals, and secret alliances swirled like smoke, leaving a lingering sense of unease. Some of these stories were whispered by men who seemed harmless, but whose influence stretched far beyond the prison gates. In the end, our source realized that jail was far more than a place to serve time. It was a condensed world, a mirror of the streets, amplified by tension and confinement. Every person, from the most notorious to the quietest, played a part in a hidden system governed by power, fear, and survival instincts. Observing Diddy and Luigi in this world taught him that influence wasn't always about fame or strength, it was about strategy, timing, and knowing when to act and when to wait. In that confined space, the lines between friend and enemy blurred, and life itself became a careful calculation, one he would never forget. Life inside the jail continued, but the sense of danger grew sharper with each passing day. Our source began to see that nothing was as simple as it seemed. Small incidents, ignored by most, often carried hidden meanings. A shove in the hallway, a brief exchange at the yard, or a whispered comment in the cafeteria could signal an alliance or a brewing conflict. The more he watched, the more he realized that survival depended on understanding these hidden signals before they became threats. Then came the first major disruption. A fight broke out between two inmates who had seemed calm and unassuming. At first glance, it appeared to be a random clash, fueled by tempers. But our source quickly realized it was far more calculated. Old grudges, hidden deals, and personal ambitions were colliding in ways that could shift the balance of power within the block. Everyone watched, tense and silent, as the chaos unfolded. The fight ended, but the ripple effects began immediately. Friendships were tested, alliances shifted, and the hierarchy of influence subtly changed. Overnight, rumors started circulating, whispered in corners where guards rarely looked. Stories of past crimes, secret betrayals, and dangerous connections outside the prison walls emerged, mixing truth with exaggeration. Our source learned to separate the real threats from the false ones, but the task was not easy. Some inmates thrived on spreading fear, using stories to manipulate those around them. Others maintained an outward calm, hiding ambitions that could explode at any moment. What shocked our source most was witnessing how Diddy and Luigi navigated this turbulent environment. Fame and notoriety meant little in moments of genuine danger. They had to rely on instincts, quick thinking, and an understanding of the hidden rules that governed the block. Every move they made, from where they sat to how they spoke, was deliberate, calculated to maintain their positions while avoiding unnecessary conflict. By midweek, our source realized that jail was a living network of influence, power, and betrayal. Every gesture, glance, and decision had meaning. Trust was rare, loyalty even rarer. People who appeared harmless could turn dangerous without warning, and those who seemed intimidating could be manipulated if you understood the rules. Life behind bars was a test of observation and strategy as much as strength and courage, and those who underestimated it often paid a high price. He had entered jail thinking it was a place to serve time, but by now he understood it was a place of constant calculation. Every day held a new lesson in survival, power, and the fragile balance between fear and respect, a balance that Diddy, Luigi, and countless others had mastered in ways that left ordinary inmates both impressed and wary. Life in jail was never predictable. Even the smallest change could shift the balance of power in an instant. Our source learned this the hard way when a sudden transfer shook the entire block. An inmate who had seemed quiet and unassuming was revealed to have dangerous connections outside the prison walls. The ripple effect was immediate. Alliances that had seemed stable began to crumble, and old rivalries reignited as fear and uncertainty spread through the cell block. Even Diddy and Luigi, who had managed to navigate the prison with skill and caution, had to reassess their positions. The tension became almost unbearable. Every interaction, no matter how minor, carried weight. A glance at the wrong time, a word said too loudly, or a misplaced gesture could spark conflict. Our source began to understand that life inside these walls was less about punishment and more about awareness, strategy, and survival. Strength alone could not protect anyone. It was those who could anticipate moves, read intentions, and act at the perfect moment who survived without harm. The prison revealed the darker side of human nature. People who seemed calm and controlled could become dangerous in an instant. Secrets once thought buried surfaced unexpectedly, creating chaos and shifting influence. Rumors of betrayals and past crimes spread quickly, often carrying more truth than anyone expected. Some inmates wielded fear like a weapon, manipulating others without anyone realizing it until it was too late. Our source watched carefully, noting every detail, every pattern, and every subtle shift in behavior. But amidst the danger, there were moments of startling clarity. He saw how Diddy and Luigi operated differently than others. They weren't just reacting to threats, they were planning, calculating, and influencing the environment around them. Every choice, from how they spoke to where they positioned themselves, was deliberate. They were masters of perception, shaping the way others acted without anyone fully realizing it. By the end of that week, our source had come to a chilling realization. The jail was more than a holding facility. It was a mirror of the outside world, intensified and compressed into a space where every move mattered. The stakes were high, and even the smallest misstep could have consequences far beyond the prison walls. He had entered thinking survival was about strength and endurance, but now he understood it was about awareness, strategy, and understanding the hidden rules of a world few could ever see or survive. The danger was constant, the alliances fragile, and the lessons unforgettable. Finally, the day came when our source walked out of the prison walls. Freedom felt strange after weeks of living under constant vigilance. Every step outside was a mix of relief and unease. The streets looked the same, yet everything had changed. He carried the weight of what he had seen, the secrets he had learned, and the people he had observed. Names like Diddy and Luigi that once seemed untouchable now appeared as human players in a complex game. Looking back, he realized that jail had been more than punishment. It had been a proving ground. Every encounter, every subtle gesture, and every whispered word had taught him about the delicate balance between power and survival. Some inmates thrived on fear, others on strategy, and only a few had mastered the rare skill of controlling perception. Diddy and Luigi had walked that line with precision, demonstrating that influence wasn't about notoriety alone, it was about timing, awareness, and calculated action. Even outside the prison, the lessons lingered. Our source could see the ripple effects of the alliances and betrayals he had witnessed. The people who seemed dangerous inside had networks that extended far beyond the walls. The ones who appeared harmless were often the most cunning. Every observation in jail had revealed how tightly intertwined fear, respect, and manipulation could be. He understood that freedom didn't erase the consequences of what happened inside. It only shifted the battlefield to the outside world. The experience also left a deeper, unsettling realization. Survival was not just physical, it was mental. The constant awareness, the endless calculation, and the instinct to watch and understand every move had left an indelible mark. Ordinary life now felt fragile, unpredictable, and infinitely more complex. Even mundane interactions carried layers of meaning he could not ignore. Most importantly, he understood that the jail had exposed more than criminal behavior. It revealed human nature at its rawest: ambition, fear, loyalty, and betrayal stripped of pretenses. In that confined, tense environment, the true character of every person was revealed. Diddy, Luigi, and countless others had survived not by chance, but by mastering a system few could comprehend. As he stepped fully into the outside world, our source knew he could never forget what he had witnessed. The prison had changed him, opening his eyes to a hidden reality where power and influence extended far beyond the bars, and where every choice carried consequences that could echo for years. It was a world he had entered as a prisoner, but left as a witness, forever aware of the delicate, dangerous game that existed just beneath the surface of society.